China is the next Nazi Germany. Until this year, I thought of China just as the closest contender for America's heavyweight superpower belt, especially in the next couple decades. Recently, however, after reading article after article about the brazen systematic detainment and torture of a conservative 1.5 million people from a single ethnic group, I'm getting serious fascist Germany vibes. At least the United States hides its ethnic mass incarceration under the veneer of mandatory minimum sentencing laws. I'm kidding, this is not the same thing, obviously. One article published just today presented evidence that the Chinese government had been collecting involuntary samples of DNA in order to map faces. Are you fucking kidding? Also disturbing has been China's active use of existing technology to repress dissent in Hong Kong. China has repeatedly demonstrated they have no qualms about shoving racial minorities into concentration camps, and a brutal capacity to eliminate opposition. I don't see any reason why China will not continue to get worse in these regards. It seems that if any country is soon to reach WW2 Germany levels of power and fascism, it will definitely be China. China is the live representation of what Orwell predicted in 1984. Mass censorship of the past. An untouchable leader. A thought police that makes people vanish. A central party that controls the lives of its members. Agreed, which is why I've recently decided to boycott all Chinese-made products. It's turned Christmas shopping into a pretty difficult task considering I'm not a rich person, but I have no regrets. I was watching a video and the guy was saying that this is WW3, and this is how it looks like. There's no guns or bombs. It's 21st century war. China is obtaining land legally though unethically. They're conquering the world without guns. They loan out money to impoverished and corrupt countries like some South American countries, African countries, and US ally the Philippines. When, not if, those countries can't pay back the loan for the infrastructure, guess who owns it? They then have persuasion in that government. I've seen it firsthand. Laws bend or vanish to please the ones who are loaning the money, or who now have authority. Went to the Philippines in the past, then went back recently, and there is now a swell of Chinese working there. Malls have signs in Chinese, ATMs have Chinese as a language selection. Is it bad to have foreign workers? Not really. But they were allowed in and do business, and conduct online gambling, which gambling is illegal in China. They even opened up restaurants that don't allow local Filipinos to dine in, because it's an only Chinese restaurant. It's happening now. This is already the start of a war or conflict that will escalate. In the future generations, when we look back at what may come between China and the world, we'll see these times as a turning point in which China started ruling. They have been there for some time now. I had foreign exchange classmates in college from China and told me some crazy shit that was going on there about 10 years ago now. Police corruption being one of the most common ones I heard. If you said anything bad about China, you would run the risk of being beaten or simply disappearing. They had so many stories about people just going missing. Shit is crazy, and we are just now beginning to see it in the media. They have been so good at suppressing it for so long, but it is certainly nothing new. This is not an unpopular opinion. An unpopular opinion would be something like China number 1. Not unpopular opinion. Next. They've already been for over 75 years. China is proof that if Nazi Germany had won the war, we'd do business with them and overlook the past. Kind of like we're negotiating with the Taliban now, you know, the group that kills little girls and rapes little boys. Have you heard of the social credit thing? If they defy the government in any way or say or do certain things, their SoCal score gets lower, and eventually if it's low enough you can't own property or get a job or anything of the sort. It's like a real-life watchdogs too. Current star. r/popular opinion. Completely agree. The worst part is that it seems they are learning from Nazi Germany's mistakes. Nazi Germany ultimately could not win the war because they did not have the productive capacity or manpower to compete with the rest of the world. It is clearly obvious China has the best productive and manpower capacity in the world, and if they get a couple of strong allies they could truly contend to take over the world. Nazi Germany could not have accomplished this. This needs to be talked about more. Imo. Is this an unpopular opinion? Wasn't it last week someone posted that they wished China overtook the US as the next superpower? Thank God for your post. It's not unpopular. It's the easiest karma grab on Reddit and you know it. It's more terrifying how afraid European countries are of them. The US has started a trade war and called them out for sticking minorities, especially Muslims, in concentration camps, while Europe has had their tail between their legs saying we are provoking China. I'm glad a lot of European nations finally opened their eyes with how China has treated Hong Kong. Just to clarify the obvious, Germans are not Nazis. Nazis are a result of Germany's government choices. Agreed. China makes me appreciate living in the West. You do realize that China in the 20th century is by an order of magnitude worse in death toll due to ideological fanaticism than Nazi Germany. I've always found it interesting about us that we recognize when the right goes too far and are very open and clear about it, aka something akin to Nazi Germany, but we consistently seem to ignore when the ideological left has gone too far, aka Soviet Russia and the Ukrainian famine, read about it, and Mao's China murdering almost 100 million Chinese folks based on class/group identities. The extreme left is just as scary as the extreme right. They both end in death, destruction, and fascist extermination. It's just unexpected that anything dealing in death and genocide seems to be synonymous with Hitler and the Reich but not synonymous with Stalin/Mao and communism. What's up with that? Why is it cool to wear a sickle and hammer shirt on a college campus but a radical hate crime if one were to wear a swastika? Don't get me wrong, I don't think wearing a swastika should be acceptable socially/politically, although you always have a free speech right to do so in the USA. That's what living in a democracy is all about, sharing it with a bunch of assholes you disagree with and not murdering each other in the process, but I think the sickle and hammer should be right up next to it on the unaccepted list. I'm starting to ramble now, but thoughts? Anyone? OMG, do you know what this sub is? You have to be truly dumb to think this an unpopular opinion. Idiot. I think China is mostly missing the racial superiority/genocide aspect of the Nazis to make the comparison entirely. The Nazis based a huge portion of their ideology and actions upon eradicating ethnic groups they didn't like and having the Germans become the superior people of Europe. It was essentially the basis of their entire movement, the clearing of Europe of Slavs, Jews, Gypsies, etc. China is not nearly as driven as the Nazis were to commit genocide. To Chinese people, the internment of the Uyghur people is nothing more than a necessary de-radicalization campaign, and they think it will be over in a few years. Of course, we know how often these things go sour and turn into actual genocide, but to the Chinese this is just a small side project of the CCP. To the Nazis, genocide was their #1 goal. To say it's the next Nazi Germany just feels strange. They are both highly abusive authoritarian governments, but they are radically different overall. The Nazis had the supreme goal of the invasion and ethnic cleansing of Europe. That goal overrides everything to them. They were ideologically, fanatically and extreme in their methods in ways that the modern CCP couldn't even imagine. I'm pretty sure all this Russians show is funded by the Chinese. Wouldn't surprise me if the Russians they indicted were paid for by the Chinese. I strongly believe this is what Putin alluded to in his interview with Megyn Kelly on NBC. In 2018, 10,000 Chinese nationals conducted research for the U.S. government, Department of Energy specifically. https://dailycaller.com/2019/11/19/China 1000 FBI NIH Energy/ Pelosi had a Chinese spy driver that was outed. Time and again we have proof of Chinese hackers, but no, we are blaming Russia because it's more convenient than not trading with China. China getting this powerful is completely America's fault. Chinese economy grew by 800% in 15 years thanks to mass export of jobs from the US to China with no regards to human rights or workers' rights. It's a valid opinion and one I mostly have myself, but would you really call it unpopular? Saving this for the r/aged like wine karma too. 5 years from now. No, it isn't, nor is this an unpopular opinion since it's constantly repeated by American media. You clearly don't know the horrors of Nazi Germany or their allies. Removed. Are any opinions here ever unpopular? Fam, they were Nazi Germany before Hitler's balls dropped. This is Reddit. Everything is the next Nazi Germany. Ah yes, the most unpopular opinion on Reddit, China bad. I would say they are more similar to pre-1960s Soviet Union. This sub totally deviated from its name at this point. Do you know what unpopular or opinion means? This is one of the most popular opinions about anything. First, don't downvote me yet because // cough / cough / the sub is for actual unpopular opinions, like mine. This opinion is definitely not unpopular. Reddit has been saying this forever, accusing everyone you don't like as a Nazi. I will deconstruct and point out everything wrong with your argument. / torture of a conservative one. 5 million people from a single ethnic group. You are talking about the Uyghur people from the Xinjiang region. They are a Turkish Muslim group with more than 11 million people, mostly in Xinjiang. It is impossible for 1.5 million people to go missing like that. Imagine 1 out of 10 Chinese people in the US disappeared. Chinese people make up around the same % of the population of the US as Uyghurs make up of China. People would notice. Also, the number where that came from was very bad data collection. The number 1.5 million came up when a member of the UNCERD, which can't make announcements for the UN, Gay McDougall, said that 1.5 million of them were held in internment camps, which he didn't produce a source for. There is one report submitted to CERD which had millions in it, but it had very bad data collection. They interviewed 8 villagers in a rural region about how many people they thought were in re-education centers, and then they multiplied it over the population of Xinjiang. Very reliable, huh? Plus, there are no credible reports about torture being used in these re-education camps. The centers/camps do exist, but they're not as horrible as you claim. Where is your evidence for the involuntary samples of DNA? Onto the HK point, I don't know where you got that the CCP was using technology to stop the HK protests. The surveillance cameras that the rioters laser beam are just traffic cameras. The CCP has pretty much left HK along and let them riot a lot. They're basically ignoring it. Final point, China isn't perfect and makes mistakes. China just got out of a civil war and warlord state 70 years ago. It has come a long way since then. It needs time to grow. The US still had slavery 70 years after it was founded. Hell, 70 years ago, blacks didn't have the same rights as whites in the USA. Western nations have had hundreds of years to grow and have very different philosophies than China. China will become better. Change takes time.